Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Homage to the blessed one, the worthy one, the supremely enlightened one. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Let us first pay our respect to our teacher, Most Venerable Kiribadguru Jnanananda Thero Pingat Loku Swamin Wahanse, for teaching us the sublime teachings of Gautama Buddha. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Meritorious devotees. So first of all, it is very important that we understand the chance we have all got to follow the teachings of a Buddha, because only a Buddha has the capability, the ability, the skill to make people realize the true nature of life, to show them the path to gain ultimate happiness in life and to be free from the samsaric journey once and forever. Because the skill the Buddha possessed in teaching this Dhamma to the people, the average person, in a way that they can understand, that is something that no one else can do. You know, even a Pacceka Buddha who realizes Dhamma on himself, like on himself without the aid of any other, still he is not capable of teaching it so that others can also realize what he has gained, the knowledge, the wisdom he has gained. So only a Tathagata, a Samma Sambuddha, is capable of teaching, delivering Dhamma talks in a way that it fits each person, so that they can realize according to their wisdom. So that skill is something very unique to Buddha. So, you know, when we think of the chief disciples, say, think Sariputta and Moggallana, they were, in their life, they were called Upatissa and Kaulita. They were very good friends. And they were also seeking for something more in life. And they went to an ascetic, and they listened to his Dhamma. But Sanjay, his name was Sanjay, Paribhajak and ascetic, went to his, they were actually students of this ascetic, and they listened to his Dhamma, and they realized, they didn't realize anything, gain any enlightenment with regard to this life as it is. So until they came across the disciple of the Buddha, Arahanta Assaji, so they suddenly, within a few words, only 2 stanzas, one was Upatissa, that is Venerable Sariputta in his lay life, listen from the Venerable Assaji, and he became a stream mentor, just like that. And the same, what he realized, he then repeated the verse to Kaulita, his friend, and he also became a stream mentor. So the ability, the wisdom was there for them to realize the Dhamma. So they had that faculty, the wisdom faculty needed to realize the Dhamma, but someone has to teach it. Because we know there was no one as wise as Arahant Sariputta in the Buddha's disciple. He was the wisest, the foremost with wisdom. So even in this case, he had to hear the teachings of a Buddha. So that means there are wise people in this world. You know, it's like there are lotus that are lotus buds that are mature, but they're in the dark. Okay, so they can't blossom. They have come out of the water in the pond, and it has surfaced from the water, and this bud has matured. But even if it is in the darkness, it will not blossom. There has to be sunlight. When sunlight falls upon the lotus that has matured, it's quite natural that it would blossom. It's a natural occurrence. Likewise, that wisdom may be within a person, but if you don't hear the teachings of a Buddha, just like the sun rays that fall upon the lotus flower, that person's wisdom does not blossom and come forth in a way that he can realize the true nature of this life. So that is why these teachings of a Buddha or coming across the Buddha's dispensation is very rare, and it's an opportunity, very rare opportunity that we should all try to cash upon, because it's not something that you come across often in the samsaric journey. Now, there's this beautiful sutta that emphasizes this. So I'll share that sutta. It's from Samyutta Nikaya. So the name of the sutta is Dutiya Jiggala Sutta, and in English we have the yoke with the whole. So yoke is like, you know, in carts you see two oxen. When the two oxen are pulling a cart, they are tethered together by a yoke. Okay, so it's basically the wooden planks, a wooden log. So there's a middle, in the middle there's a hole. So that's what you call the yoke with the hole. So here Buddha says, because suppose that this great earth had become one mass of water. So imagine this earth as we know it, the planet Earth, it is a whole mass of water, so no ground. Okay, and a man would throw a yoke with a single hole upon it. So what will happen when you throw a yoke on the mass of water? It would float, no? And it says, yeah, an easterly wind would drive it westward. A westerly wind would drive it eastward. A northerly wind would drive it southward. A southerly wind would drive it northward. Likewise, wherever, to whichever direction the wind blows, the yoke will float. And think of the area, the globe, whole globe is filled with water, and it is floating there. And it says here, there was a blind turtle which would come to the surface once every 100 years. Then living in the sea, there lives in the sea a blind turtle which would come to the surface once in every 100 years. Then Buddha asked the monks, what do you think, bhikkhus? Would that blind turtle come into the surface once every 100 years, insert its neck into the yoke with a single hole? So think of the probability of that happening. You can't even imagine, no, that would ever happen. So the very instant the turtle comes to the surface of the water, in 100 years this happens, the yoke should be in that exact spot so that it would put its neck into the yoke. Okay, it would be by chance, Venerable Sir. So monks reply, okay, they say it would be by chance, Venerable Sir, that the blind turtle coming to the surface once every 100 years would insert its neck into the yoke with a single hole. Then Buddha say, in the same way, so too, bhikkhus, it is by chance that one obtains the human state. See how rare the opportunity we have got here. It's by chance that one obtains the human state. By chance that the Tathagata and Arahant, the perfectly enlightened one, arises in the world. It is so very rare. Being a human, to be born as a human, and therefore there to arise the Tathagata Samma Sambuddha, a perfectly enlightened one in this world. By chance that the Dhamma and discipline proclaimed by the Tathagata shines in the world. These three things are as rare as that simile of a turtle coming to the surface of the water every 100 years, once in every 100 years, and putting its neck through that yolk that is just out there floating on the ocean. That much it is rare. So we have come across, see, now we have a human life. We have come across Buddha's dispensation. See, imagine how fortunate we are. You have obtained that human state because, he says, a Tathagata and Arahanta, perfectly enlightened one, has arisen in the world. The Dhamma and discipline proclaimed by the Tathagata shines in the world. So Buddha urges them, therefore bhikkhus and exertions should be made to understand what this is suffering. This is the cause of suffering. This is the cessation of suffering. This is the path leading to the cessation of suffering. So we have to strive to realize the Four Noble Truths. So to that effect, so we have to understand. So this is the moment of opportunity we have. So this is why we try to learn the suttas, the teachings of the Buddha, and grow in confidence towards the triple gem. And the sutta, the Dhamma content we were discussing from the Maha Sihanada Sutta, the great discourse on the lion straw from the Majjhima Nikaya, the middle end discourses. So I recap the sutta because we discussed some of it. So there was this Lichavi Prince Sunakata who had ordained, he was a monk, but he disrobed. Then he was he would tell among the people, and he would go saying, like the Buddha, he has no realization, no super human state of achieving, nothing, have not achieved anything supernatural. He has no superhuman states. He has no realization. He just says things out of reasoning. So just logic, just reasoning. So he has no realization. He's telling of the Buddha. He's saying that Buddha, he has not realized something special. He does not possess any super human state. So he just talks with reasoning. And but still he says that if a person does follow his teachings, he can realize, can achieve liberation. So this is what this Lichavi, after disrobing, that's what he was saying. So Venerable Arahant Sariputta overheard this when he was going for alms. So then he told Buddha of this, that he had heard this that the Lichavi Prince who had just disrobed, left the dispensation, was saying something like this about this, about the Buddha. Then Buddha said, Sariputta, this misguided man, Sunakkatta, will never come to know the Buddha as he is, that the Blessed One is an Arahant, Samma Sambuddha. Likewise, his qualities, he will never understand that. He failed to understand this. But in this way, if he clings on to this wrong view, thinking that the Buddha has no realization, no, he has not achieved any superhuman state. Likewise, if he cling to this wrong view, then after passing away, after his death, he will straight away be born in hell. So it is only after this Buddha said that though he is not aware, I have these 10 powers with me, the Tathagata, the Buddha. So we were discussing these 10 powers. Okay, and that is when the Buddha told in this Mahasiyanada Buddha, the 10 powers the Buddha possessed to enable Arahant Sariputta. So the first power of the Buddha, the Tathagata, is Sariputta. The Tathagata has these 10 Tathagata powers, he says, possessing which Tathagata claims greatness, rolls his lying straw in the assemblies and sets straw in the wheeling of Dhamma. What are those 10 powers? So based on these 10 powers, he would teach the Dhamma. He would turn the wheel of Dhamma among assemblies fearlessly. It's like a lion's roar, therefore. Okay. because he has that confidence, born of realization and his own wisdom, because he possesses these 10 powers, only seen in a Buddha. Then he goes on to say, Ampisariputta Tathagato Thanancha Tanato Attanancha Attanato Yatabhutam Pajanati. That is the first power that the Buddha knows definitively what is possible and what is impossible, what can happen and what cannot happen, what will not happen. So here the Tathagata understand as it actually is, the possible as possible and the impossible as impossible. So these things that are possible and impossible, this is in the Bahudhatuka Sutta you find this, the latter part of the sutta. I think we have covered that sutta in this program once, but I will repeat what it is there. So one thing is that it is impossible for a person accomplished in view, that means a person who is an stream entered, possessing the right view, to take any condition as permanent. That would never happen. Impossible. That a person, a stream entered, who has the right view, would never ever consider anything to be permanent. That is not possible. That is not going to happen. But it is possible for an ordinary person who lacks the right view to take something that is conditioned to be permanent. That is possible. So in this way, Buddha makes definitive statements with regard to certain things based on this power of the Tathagata. And also he says it's impossible for a person with the right view to take any condition as pleasant. But in the case of an ordinary person, even a conditioned thing he would consider as pleasant. It is impossible for a person with right view to take anything as self. It is not going to happen. But for an ordinary person who lacks the right view, it is possible for him to consider something that is self as, that is non-self as self. That is possible. So what else? It says here, it is impossible for a person accomplished in view to murder their mother. This is the 5 heinous acts. So a person who possesses the right view, a stream entered, would never kill his mother, father, an arahant, and shed the blood of the Buddha with malicious intent, or create schism among the Sangha. A stream entered would never ever do this because he is accomplished with right view. But in the case of an ordinary person, it is possible. It is possible that can happen. That is there, it can happen. So this Buddha says definitely with his power. Tananchanato Yatabhutam Pajanati. He knows what's going to happen and what's not going to happen. Then what else? Buddha says here, the 5 heinous acts. Then it is impossible for a person accomplished in view to acknowledge another teacher. So once you become a stream entered, you will never ever go for refuge to any other teacher other than the Buddha. So that will never happen. But in the case of an ordinary person, you may later go refuge, seek refuge in other religion, in another teacher, because we see people, even Buddhists switching religions. Why does that happen? Because they are not accomplished in right view. Once you have attained the fruition of stream entry, that will never ever happen. Because you have confidence that is steadfast in the Buddha. Steadfast confidence in the Dhamma. Steadfast confidence in the Sangha. So your faith, the triple gem, will not waver. But in the case of a person who does not possess the right view, it can happen. That is what the Buddha says. Okay. So it is impossible for 2 perfected ones, that means 2 Buddhas, fully awakened Buddhas, to arise in the same world system at the same time. It will never happen. At the same time, two Buddhas will not arise in this world system. But it is possible for just one perfect one, a fully awakened one Buddha, to arise. It is impossible for two wheel-turning monarchs to simultaneously arise in this world system, in the same world system. That will never happen. Okay? Yeah. But it is possible for just one wheel-turning monarch to arise in one world system. And also it is impossible for a woman to be a Buddha. It would always be a man that attains Buddhahood. It is impossible for a woman to be a wheel-turning monarch. It would always be a man. It is impossible for a woman to perform the role of God sucker. That role always goes to a man, not a woman. So down, but that means like now if there's a woman who practices virtue, the five powers of the disciple, confidence in the Buddha, virtue, Dhamma knowledge, generosity, wisdom, and she is born amongst the devas. She can be born as a male deva. Then also she can become a God Sakta. That's how it works. It has to be, it is a man who gets the position. So then it says, it is impossible for a woman to perform the role of Mara, also a Brahma. That doesn't happen. Because you know, in the Brahma world, there is no women, only male. But it is not possible for a man to but it is possible for a man to perform the role of a Sakka, the Mara, or the Brahman. Then it is also said here in the same sutta, Bahudhatuk Sutta, it is impossible for a likable, desirable, agreeable result to come from bad conduct of body, speech, and mind. So bad conduct will never bring happiness. That is not going to happen. But it is possible for an unlikable, undesirable, disagreeable result to come from bad conduct of body, speech, and mind. That is for sure. Okay. Next we have, it is impossible for an unlikable, undesirable, disagreeable result to come from good conduct of body, speech, and mind. If it is good conduct, surely it will be pleasant results, good results. It will bring happiness, never suffering. It is impossible that someone who has engaged in bad conduct of body, speech, and mind could, for that reason alone, after death, be reborn in a good place, in the heavenly realms. If a person does bad deeds, that will not take him to the heavenly realms. But it is possible that those deeds would definitely take him to a bad destination, in a place of loss, a bad place in the hell world. That is possible. Next it says, it is impossible that someone who has engaged in good conduct by body, speech, and mind to be reborn in the hell worlds. That is impossible. But what is possible is, if a person has engaged in good conduct by body, speech, and mind, he will definitely be reborn in a good destination, in the heavenly worlds. So likewise, there are things Buddha said definitely this is possible, this is impossible, based on this power that he can say exactly. Tānañca tānato yatā bhūtaṃ pajanati, attānañca attānato yatā bhūtaṃ pajanati. That is the first power. What is the second power then? Buddha goes on to say, Punachaparan Sariputta Tathagato, Atitanagata Pachupannanam, Kamma Samadhananam, Thanaso, Hetuso, Vipakam Yata Bhutam, Pajananti. Sariputta, the Tathagata understand as it actually is the results of actions undertaken, past, future, and present, by way of possibilities and causes. That means when we perform actions, we are creating karma, no? It's good and bad actions. Good actions create good karma, whereas bad actions creates bad karma. And these karma may bear fruit in this very life. Okay? We call them ditta dhamma karma. They come to effect in this life. Then we have upapajja vedana. They will bear fruit in the next life. Then there are the aparapariya vedaniya karma that will bear fruit throughout the sansaric journey in any life until you attain Nibbana. It will bear fruit. So Buddha, he had this ability, he could say exactly where, when, how a certain karma would bear fruit. Only Buddha can say that. Karma vipaka, it is beyond the comprehension. Karma vipaka means the results of the karma is beyond the comprehension of the average mind. Only a Buddha, not even an Arahant, can say exactly this action of this person will bear fruit in this manner, bringing these results in this life, in the next life, or in that life in the sansaric journey. In the case of a Buddha, he knows exactly. Okay? That is the second power the Buddha possesses. What is the third power we discussed? Can anyone say? Because these five we discussed in the previous program. Anyone?
No, but that's Nancy.
Yeah.
The third one we discussed, it was about the knowledge of the way leading to all kinds of birth.
Yeah, very good. So in Pali it is Punachaparan Sariputta, Tathagato Sabbatta Gamini Patipadang Yatha Bhutang Pajanati. So Buddha knows everything with regard to like exact births. So like he know everything that affects rebirth in heaven. How everything you say and do would affect rebirth in the hell world, or the ghost world, or the Brahma world. So Buddha knew that. He clearly knew that if a person take a certain path, like if he lives his life in a certain manner, doing certain deeds, he would end up in the ghost world. If a person does good deeds and live his life in a good way, he will be born in the heaven. And we discussed, no, what certain things a woman would have to practice to be born in heaven. Specifically, in the Matugama Samyutta, we get many sutras there, the qualities a woman should develop, and how in some cases they would be born in a specific devas world because of those qualities. Okay. And Buddha also gave a simile, no? Buddha gave a nice simile where Buddha sees some people that they are taking a certain path, and if they take that path, he sees a person, he's taking a certain path, and he sees that person. That path leads to a charcoal pit, no? Like as Buddha say, a person engaging in the 10 bad actions, and because of that, they are born in the hell world, Matchapadi. He likens that person to take in a path that leads to a charcoal pit. That's also in the Mahanidana Sutta later on, after the 10 powers are discussed, there this simile. With regard to the ghost world, he said it is like you see a person who is traveling through a say desert, and he is very thirsty and very tired, and he finds shelter uh, yeah, under a tree that is withered out. So no, actually this is just a tree without leaves or branches. So there is much suffering, no comfort there. That's like the ghost world. In the case of the human world, it is like a person finding shade under a tree with branches and leaves in a desert. Desert is like the samsara. So like that is like the human world. In the case of the heavenly world, he said it is like a person. He comes across a mansion, huge mansion with all the comforts. That is like the heaven. So likewise, Buddha gave these similes so that how certain actions of a person would then take him to a specific birth in a good or bad destination. And we discussed, no, like Buddha has taught us what happens when you give alms but you are not virtuous. What would have happened to such person? That person is immoral, but he just still practices generosity. How would that affect his next birth? Can someone say what we learned last time? Where would such a person be born? That you practice generosity, but still you are not virtuous. What would that be like? You will be born where? We discussed this, no? Don't you remember?
Oh,
Wouldn't
sorry, Bante. Is it
Yeah.
in animal world, but then they are going to have a good life in animal world?
Yeah.
They get good.
Yes, exactly. Like Buddha said, they will be born like horses and certain like elephants, and so even in the case we see in certain families the dogs are treated like if they are kids. In some cases, even more. They get all the comfort, all the food. So the reason for that means those beings, those dogs or those animals, those pets, get all that comfort and love and care because in a past life they have practiced generosity but not morality. Therefore, the good results of practicing generosity has borne fruit in the animal world. Because if you don't practice virtue, you can't be born in a heavenly world. It is the virtuous life that uplifts you to the good worlds, the good destinations, the heavenly worlds. If you lack virtue, that means you kill evil beings, you steal, you do all the bad deeds. That means you will be born in the animal world, among ghosts, or the hell worlds. It is there that the gift of giving, the results of giving will bear fruit. Okay, that we learn. So Buddha knew all this, no? How certain access brings about a specific birth in a specific world. And we discussed how like Kokalika, his actions, because he harbored anger toward Venerable Sariputta Moggallana, he was born in the Paduma hill, no? Because he did not give up that the anger he harbored. And how the Kovarakattiya, he was also born in hell. So we discussed this, no? I hope you remember. So likewise, this is another power. And then we also discussed that two ascetics who live like a dog and a cow. No? We discussed those two, and those two, there came two ascetics to the Buddha, and they were living, they were practicing asceticism. One was practicing the asceticism of a dog, while the other was practicing the asceticism of a cow. That means you live exactly like that animals, like a dog and a cow. You will eat, drink, sit, and all those things you do. You basically live a life of an animal, even though you are a human. And they wanted to know where they will be born. Buddha said, you are practicing, like you are living like a dog, thinking this living will give you liberation. You will liberate you. That is a wrong view. to harbor that wrong view. And because of that wrong view, if you do not denounce it, that will take you to the hellverse. Okay, so they didn't know that, but after Buddha pointed this out, then one of them becomes an arahant. No? He ordains in the Buddha's dispensation and became an arahant. Where in the case of the other, he became he went for refuge to the Buddha, became a disciple of the Buddha. So Buddha knew if they kept on that path, that is where they will end up. So it is because of this power of the Buddha, Tathagata, he knows that. Next power is Punacha parang sariputta tathagato aneka dhatu nana dhatu lokang yathabhutam pajanati. So in this case, Buddha sees the knows and understand. Again, the Tathagata understand that it as it actually is the world with its many and different elements. So that means Buddha understands the diversity of the elements in this world, all the elements. So I think Linda raised the question like how to exactly understand this. So that means like all the suttas you get in the Dhatu Sangyutta, that suttas where the elements are discussed, Buddha delivers those Dhamma talks based on this power. His understanding as it actually is the world with its many and different elements. So I will quote a few suttas from the Dhatu Sangyutta so you can understand. Yeah, diversity of elements. So it says here, I will quote few suttas, okay. At Savatthi Bhikkhus, I will teach you the diversity of elements. Listen to that and attend closely. I will speak. Yes, Venerable Sir, those bhikkhus replied. The Blessed One said, and what bhikkhus is the diversity of elements? The eye element, form element, eye consciousness element, the ear element, the sound elements, ear consciousness element, the nose element, the odor element, nose consciousness element, the tongue element, taste element, tongue consciousness element, the body element, the tactile object element, and the body consciousness element, the mind element, mental phenomena element, mind consciousness element. So these 6 senses, the external senses and the 6 consciousness, here it is Buddha discusses them as elements. He differentiates them as elements. And here see the next sutta. So in the second sutta, diversity of contacts at Savatthi, because it is in dependence on the diversity of elements that there arise the diversity of contacts. And what bhikkhus is the diversity of elements? The eye element, the ear element, the nose, the tongue, the body, and the mind. And see the contact with regard to the 6 senses, the contact is different. And here Buddha said, and how is it? Because that in dependence on the diversity of elements, there arise the diversity of contact. In dependence of the eye element, there arise eye contact. In dependence on the ear element, there arises ear contact. In dependence of the nose element, there arises the odor contact. In dependence of the tongue element, there arises taste contact. In dependence of the body element, there arises body contact. In dependence on the mind element, there arises mind and contact. So you say that is why from the eye we can't hear. We can only see. Because that element is different than that of the ear. Because from the ear element you can hear. So this diversity is something Buddha realizes. So, and there is also some other suttas. There's the Kammapata. I don't know how to browse to that point in this. So you can read that all the suttas you come across in this Dhatu Sangyutta, is based on this quality of the Buddha, that he could understand this is a power in understanding the diversity, seeing the different elements that you find in the world. Because we discussed, no, there are certain beings in this world, what we call nanatta kaya, nanatta sanya, like they are different bodies and different thoughts, like ourselves, no, humans, we have different bodies and our thoughts are different. So that's one element, one nature of beings. Okay, then we come across ekatta kaya, ekatta sanya. The bodies are the same and also the thoughts are the same. Okay, so looks and the thoughts are the same. Then there are these means ekatta kaya, nanatta sanya. The bodies are the same, but there is difference in the thoughts, the perceptions. Nanatta kaya, ekatta sanya. The bodies are different, but still the same thoughts, the same perception is there. Okay, so likewise, it is through this power that the Buddha realized all this. That he had this power so that he see the different elements of the world. So that is the fourth power a Buddha possesses. And we discussed, no, that once Buddha saw groups of monks practicing walking meditation. And Buddha pointed out and say that group of monks who are with Venerable Arahant Sariputta, they are all very wise. So that similar people with similar qualities flock together. And there are people, there are monks like who had very supernatural powers, like Arahant Moggala. They were all together practicing walking meditation with Venerable Arahant Moggala. And who were well versed in the teachings of the Buddha, they were with Arahant, Venerable Ananda Sayinasa. So the people with similar qualities, similar characteristics, they come together. That is the nature, because you see, like all the garbage goes in the dumpster, or place where we put the garbage. They are taken to certain place. You don't put the valuables in the dustbin, or the garbage disposal. So that is there in this world, that people who, now we say, even in the case of people who want to be virtuous, who like to restrain the senses, they are the ones who comes to the monastery, because they are seeking something more in life. Those people would come together. That is the nature of the element, the diversity that exists in this world. That is also reflected among peoples, among beings, that they come together in a certain way. So the next power we discussed is the fifth power is again the Tathagata understand as it actually is how beings have different inclinations. The inclinations of the beings. That means they have certain traits in life. They are inclined to certain way of acting. Like Punacchaparan Sariputta Tathagato Sattanang Nana Dimuttikang Yata Bhutang Pajanati. They see how the beings, when they travel in the sansaric journey, they pick up certain traits. That means they are molded in such a way through their own actions. So we discuss, and they are like, say, in the time of the Buddha, there was an Arahant. His name was Pilindavacha. So Arahant Pilindavacha, though he was an Arahant, he would, like the other monks, the way he addressed other monks, the manner in which he did, they felt like he would call Vasala. Like that is like when you, how do you call a servant? Like he was like belittling the person. That's the effect it had on the other monks. Then they complained to the Buddha that he does not talk respectfully to the monks. So Buddha said, no, he's not. His thoughts are pure, Buddha said. He's not trying to disrespect him. That is his manner of speech. Reason for that is Buddha said for 500 eons. Okay, like for 500 eons past life, all together, straight away, one after another, for 500 lives in past life, he had been born in the Brahmi clan. So that means that is the most highest class. So then that is the normal way of they always speak down to people, no, because they are of the higher class. So because of that habit, though he is an arahant, still in this life he has that habit of the way of speaking, but there is no thoughts of ill will towards any person, okay, because he's an arahant. And there was also the case of the certain monk who had to eat a lot. He would eat a lot, more than normal. Okay, so he was accused of gluttony by other monks. But when he was brought to the Buddha, Buddha said, no, the reason, he asked Buddha, is it true that you eat a lot? He said, I do eat a lot, but even that is still not enough for me. I still feel hungry. Then Buddha said the reason being for that is that for 500 lives, past lives, he had, that means 500 lives in a trot, like not in between. He had been born as a tusker, an elephant. So the elephants, they have to eat a lot. So that habit is there, that trait is still there with him. That is why he eats more than a usual portion. Okay. Likewise, Buddha has a clear understanding of this. Also because he has the other, this is, he could also reflect upon the past lives. That is also one power we'll be discussing. So in this way, Buddha knew how a certain faculties within a person are there. So he could clearly understand how beings have different inclinations towards certain things. That is the fifth power we discussed last time. So sixth power the Buddha possesses. පුනච්චපන සාරිපුත්ත තථාගතෝ පරසත්තානම් පරපුග්ගලානම් ඉන්දිය පරිවපත්තං තථා භූතං පජානාති. Okay, now we are discussing the faculty. Again, the Tathagata understand as it actually is the disposition of the faculties of other beings, other persons. That too is a Tathagata's power. So it is because of this power that Buddha knows exactly how to preach to a certain person, because Buddha sees his how his ingrained faculties are there, how his faculties is matured, have matured. Like we say, Indriya Dharma, Shraddha, confidence in the Buddha. Then effort, mindfulness, concentration, wisdom, likewise, these qualities, how they have matured over time in the samsaric journey through their powers of their merit, because they have practiced in other Buddha's dispensations. And if a person has practiced impermanent meditation in his past life, he would deliver Dhamma talk to emphasize that impermanence. So they realize. If it is Asubha meditation, they have practiced the foulness meditation in the past life, then he would deliver Dhamma talking based upon that, so they realize. So he knew exactly what to teach each and every person. Based on this quality, he could do that. There was the case of like 30 monks, Tin Samatta Sutta, 30 monks came to the Buddha. So these monks came, they were living in the forest, dwelling in a secluded life. They wore rag robes. They would always go for alms, for Pindapata, lived on Pindapata. Likewise, they had good qualities. So Buddha thought I should teach them Dhamma in a way they become arahants here and now. So these 30 monkeys were there, and Buddha gave them a Dhamma talk about the past lives of their. And Buddha made them think of their past lives, how they had shed blood when they had been cows and they were beheaded. They had been gods and they were beheaded in the samsaric journey. And they had the Pubbya Nivasānussati Jnāna. They themselves could recollect their past life and they saw the sansaric journey, the suffering, and how they had been thieves and caught and beheaded by the king or the government. The amount of blood that they had shed in each occasion, that was more than the 4 waters of the 4 great oceans. So Buddha made them see it for themselves, because they could also reflect themselves on the past life. They then and there, with that Dhamma talk, they became Arahants, because Buddha knew how their faculties had matured. So likewise, he could see that, no? He had that ability. And there is this another incident from a sutta, a person. His name was Pessa. I think this is in Kandaraka Sutta. Pessa, I think, is the son of Kandaraka. And Pessa says in that sutta, it is incredible, sir. It's amazing. Kandaraka was, he was like, he trains tuskers, elephants. Tuskers, trains tuskers, and this was the son. So he says, it is incredible, sir. It is amazing how the Buddha knows what's best for beings. Even though people continue to be so shady, rotten, and tricky. People are very tricky, they are fickle. But Buddha knows what's best for them, he says. For human beings are very shady, he says. So while the animal is obvious, because when he trains tuskers, he knows that they are very upright and forthcoming, that whatever defects they have, they show them. They exhibit their shortcomings, then you can tame them accordingly. But that is not the case with the humans, he says. For human beings are shady, sir. While the animal is obvious, for I can drive an elephant in training, and while going back and forth in camp, it will try all the tricks, bluffs, rushes, and feints that it can. But my bond servants, employees, and workers behave one way by body, another by speech, and their minds another. People have something in their minds, but they will say another thing. So very fickle, very crafty, shady people. That's how humans are. But that is not the case with the animals, he says. So it is incredible, sir. It's amazing how the Buddha knows what's the best for sentient beings, even though people continue to be so shady, rotten, and tricky. But still, Buddha is able to teach, give the Dhamma talks in such a way that he can bring forth the good in any person. That Buddha does with this power. You can see the faculties of a person and then teach the Diva Dhamma talk accordingly. That's so true, Pessa. Buddha says, that's so true, Pessa. That's so true. For human beings are shady, while the animal is obvious. So, and there was this case when Buddha was going for alms with Venerable Anand Sayinasa, and he smiled. So Anand Sayinasa wanted to know why the Buddha smiled suddenly. Buddha then pointed out, Anand, do you see that old couple who are begging for food? Do you see those beggars? Anand said, yes. You know, these two were the richest lords of this kingdom. But they lived a life in such a way that now they are beggars. So Buddha said, because they are, in this case, in their young age, the parents of these two, of the young boy, the parents said, we have so much in abundance, wealth, like I think 80 million or 800 million in gold nowadays, okay? That much of wealth we have with us, so we don't need to teach our son, because there is enough money for him to spend. He doesn't have to make a living for himself. So what they did was they married him a similar girl. Also, because as the dowry, they again got like 800 million gold sovereigns or whatever. They have plenty of money now. In the case of the girl also, she is also not learned or did not have any occupation, or just they were both now living a life of freedom and living, just spending money and trying to enjoy the sense pleasures. And these two, they began to drink, began to spend money on spend money in lavishly, and spend money on engaging in with a horse and all that, those things, bad things they did. And with all this, they spend the money quickly, all the money they had on both sides, what she had inherited from their parents, and in his case the parents' money, and all this 800 million they spent. And they then had to sell their house, their property, and they ended up being beggars. Buddha said, if these two, if they had begun a business in their youth, he would have been the first lord in the country. He would be that much rich. Had they ordained in their young age, the boy would have become an arhat, whereas his wife would have become a non-returner. Had they begun a business in their middle life, right, middle age, they would have become the second lord in the country, the kingdom. Had they ordained in their middle age, the boy would have become non-returner, whereas the wife would have become a once returner. That didn't happen. They spent a life of pleasure, and they had the qualities, no? The ingrained faculties were there, but they were not nurtured. Therefore, they did not mature. They declined. Because they are also impermanent. They are also conditioned, those faculties. The merits also, they diminished. And Buddha said, if they had at least in their old age, they had began a business, then they could have become third lords of the country. And had they ordained in the old age, one would become, the gent would become a once returner, whereas the other wife would have become a stream entrant. But Anand, now they have lost everything. Nothing, no wealth, no property, and they will be born in hell because they have not accrued any merits, just spent their merits. So Buddha sees these faculties were there, now they are not there. They have declined. It is with this power that Buddha sees, this power of seeing how the faculties are ingrained within a person. So that is very unfortunate. Likewise, these things happen. And even the case of the Ajasatta, if he had not killed his father, Bimbisara, he would have become a stream entrant. But because he did, and we learned in the Purusindra Jnana Sutta, no, how the association with the bad people, bad friends, can affect your ingrained faculties, no? How good association helps you to build these qualities, foster these qualities. Whereas associating with the bad ones, how your wholesome roots are destroyed. When you associate with the noble friends, how your wholesome roots foster and you progress in the spiritual journey. So Buddha sees all this based on this power. So the Purusindra Jnana Sutta, you know, the whole sutta is based on this Tathagata understand as it actually is the disposition of the faculties of others beings. Other person, that too is other persons. That too is a Tathagata's power. Then we come to the next power, the seventh power. Sariputta, Tathagato jhana vimokka samadhi samapattinang sankilesang vodhanang utthanang yatha bhutang pajanati. Again, the Tathagata understand as it actually is the defilement, the cleansing, and the emergence in regard to jhanas, liberations, concentrations, and attainments. That too is the Tathagata's power. So Buddha knows clearly all that is there to be known about the jhanas. That means the results of developing constantly. First jhana, second jhana, third jhana, fourth jhana, and the arupa jhana, the formless jhanas, with regard to all the attainments. Buddha had a comprehensive knowledge and understanding. This is how a certain attainment is defined, how it is cleansing, how you emerge from a jhanic state, how you enter upon a jhanic state, how you dwell in that state. A comprehensive knowledge of this. There was an incident, this one Vinay, okay? There's an incident where Arhan Moggallana is meditating. He's in the fourth jhana. So in the fourth jhana, normally you don't hear anything. It's like most the refined state. The mind is imperturbable, unwavering. So very purified state, no? So he emerges from this jhana, Arhan Moggallana, and he claims while residing in that jhanic state, in the fourth jhana, I heard the trumpeting of elephants. So the monks say that this can't be, because when you are in that state, jhanic state, you can't hear any sound, the trumpeting sound. He's lying. He's just without, like, then he said he has not actually experienced this jhanic state. Had he experienced, he would not utter such a thing. Therefore, he is falsely claiming to have fruits of the path, spiritual attainments that he does not have actually. So they accused him of lying and told to the Buddha that Arahant Moggallana, they didn't know, of course, he was an Arahant and his achievements, that Moggallana, Bhante Moggallana is lying about his spiritual attainment. Then Buddha said, no, he was talking the truth. There is such a jhanic state in the fourth jhana, in this case, that is not fully purified. Therefore, in that state, you can still hear sounds. That is why Arahant Moggallana heard sounds in that occasion, because in that specific state of the jhana, he did hear the sound, because that state was defiled. So likewise, all the nuances with regard to the jhanic states, Buddha had the knowledge. That's why he said exactly this is how. Okay. And there's also, yeah.
Can you tell me that Sutta, Swamina?
It's from the Vinaya.
Sorry, okay.
It's from the Vinaya, okay. Then in the same Vinaya, this is also from the Vinaya, okay. There was a certain river. Then the water of this river was very hot. Okay. Then Arahant Moggallana said about this, the reason for this water being hot is that it is flowing through two hell wells. And they didn't believe. They again went to the Buddha and complained, like, we all know this river, the spring of this river is very cold. So, and he is saying that how could it go through the hell likewise? Then Buddha said, no, it is true. It does pass through this hell wells when it comes before coming here. Therefore, that is why it is hot, the water. So it is true. So likewise, Buddha know everything. Okay. So this is not regard to this jhanic things, but I just wanted to say, because he could know, because he had developed jhanas and he possessed the spiritual powers. Arahant Moggallana, he was foremost when he came to these supernormal powers. And there was also a case again that there was another monk. This was from the Vinaya. His name was Sobhita. So Arahant Sobhita, he said he can reflect 500 eons. 500 eons, imagine. He can reflect upon 500 past eons. And when he told this to monks, monks did not believe. They accused him of lying. Buddha said, no, he can recollect past 500 years, but it is only one life. That means that he had lived one life for 500 years. That because in the Brahmaverse, the lifespan is very long. So in that case, he had been in Brahmaverse. So he did reflect 500 years, but that is one life. So likewise, Buddha knew everything. These things, these monks, they reflect upon these things in jhanic states, no. But Buddha know exactly what their capabilities, their limitations. You know, in the case when there was the incident of when how Arhan Moggallana tamed the Nandopananda Nagaraj, that means Buddha and I think 500 Arahants. Buddha, there was Venerable Sariputta Moggallana, Buddha himself, and 500 Arahants were traveling through the sky to Tavatin's heaven. On their way, like they were traveling in the sky, no, over the mountain of Mahameru. Okay, in this Mahameru, there was this Nandopananda Naga king. He dwelt there and he felt he offended. How can they go? They fly above me. How can they travel above my kingdom? So he was a huge Naga, huge black Naga. He wrapped his coils around the Mahameru mountain and kept it. He covered the whole of Tavatimsa with his hood. Okay, and they were now blocking the way to Buddhas and the monks, the path. So the monks they noticed something amiss was happening, and then the Buddha said, "This is what's going on. It's a Naga. He is covered in the whole of Tavatim's heaven with his hood." Imagine the size of the Naga. Then the monks, they were all arhants. They came forward. We will tame him. We will tame him. But Buddha did not allow any of the monks to come forward and do that act, because Buddha knew only Arahant Moggallana possessed the supernormal powers to deal with the Nandopananda Naga, because he was so powerful. He did not allow any of the other Haras, because you have to have such an ability to enter the jhanas and to emerge in the dharana in a split second. If you are even in a very wee bit late, you can get into trouble, because the Naga is very powerful. And in the clash that ensued, Venerable Arahant Moggallana would enter the ear of left ear and come out from the right ear. He would enter into the stomach of the Naga. All this is done through the jhanic powers, supernormal powers. And the Naga then he first what he did was Arahant Moggallana, he shapeshifted to huge Naga than the Nandopananda. He was far huge, and he covered the Nandopananda's hood with his head, and then he again shapeshifted and entered the stomach of the Nandopananda. And now he understood that it is very difficult to deal with this monk, so he said, okay, then I have to trick him. He said, please come out of my stomach, you are hurting me, please come out. So when Arahant Moggallana came and sat in his mouth, in the mouth of Naga, and Naga thought, now is my time to kill this monk, and he sent a smoke, very vicious smoke, and if he had been a wee bit late, he would have died. But in the split second, he attained the fourth jhana, just like that. So in the fourth jhana, you can't be destroyed. Okay, in like, you know, Nirodha Samapatti, in the state of Nirodha Samapatti, we have heard the monk was, people thought that he was dead, and they set him on fire, no? But still the monk did not die. People thought he had passed away. Sanjeeva, no, the monk's name, they then named him as Sanjeeva. That is again born, reborn sort of meaning. So likewise, in this case, he attained that jhana state and he was unharmed. So in this way, Arahant Moggallana was able to tame Nandopananda, the Naga king. So because of his supernormal powers, and Buddha knew he had the necessary skill to deal with that Naga, because the speed has to be there, how you emerge and you enter upon certain jhanic state to perform the supernormal acts. So likewise, this is a quality Buddha possessed, okay? And you know, even in the case where in the Pachalayana Sutta, where Buddha, he taught Arahant Moggallana to develop samadhi when he was falling asleep. The things he told him to do you remember? If you are falling asleep, to get rid of the sleepiness, he told you to think of any Dhamma content you remember, no? Contemplate upon that. If that doesn't work, he asks you to chant aloud whatever Dhamma content you have memorized. Or if that doesn't work, he told you to what? Wash your face with water and look at the sky. If it's night, look at the stars. And what else did he say? Like to rub your ears, your arms, so that sleepiness will go away like night. If that doesn't work, Buddha said you should imagine like if it is night time, think it's daytime. And likewise to develop aloka sanya, the perception of light, so that will help you. If that doesn't help, then he said you should walk meditate, try walk meditating. Even if that doesn't help, then Buddha said you have to lie down in the lion's posture with the determination to wake up after certain time period. Okay. Likewise, Buddha knew what to do to develop samadhi, and he helped Arahant Moggallana to attain jhanas. Okay. So moving on, the next ninth quality, we discussed, I think, how many? 8. No, 8 is the Tathagata recollects manifold past lives. Okay, he had that ability to recollect manifold past lives. So that is also power. So in this case, there was once when Buddha was going for alms, an old man, a Brahmin, approached the Buddha and said, when he saw the Buddha, he said, "Oh, my son, where have you been? It's been quite a long time. We saw you. We haven't seen you quite." He was like talking to him as if he was his son. So Buddha also stayed, like he went with him to his home, and then the Brahmin's wife came, and he also addressed him, "Oh, you, my son, how nice it is to see you. Where have you been? We were missed you so much." Likewise, they are treating him as if he was their son. Then they introduced him to their family, all of their family, their relatives. They introduced him as the Buddha as their own son, and they told the Buddha to come, invited him to come for alms for the rain street to their house only. So then the other people then complained, okay, now every day Buddha during the rain street went to that particular home for alms, because they said Buddha is our son, so we want to attend to him likewise. But then the people complained, we also need a chance to offer alms to the Buddha. The Buddha said to those two Brahmin, the old man and the old lady, look, we have to give a chance to them also. So please consider that I would also accept them. Then they said, okay, you can accept Buddha, but when you go to a certain house, please allow us to also bring dana to that house, so we can keep on offering dana to you. So this ensued. So Buddha would go to other houses also, but this tall couple would still come there, offer dana, and listen to the Dhamma talks. So during the Vasisa, Buddha gave Dhamma talks. They become stream-entered. Then in another talk, they become once return. And in the next Dhamma talk, they become non-return, and these two became Arahants. And there came the day when you are a lay person and you an Arahant, if you do not ordain, you have to attain Parinibbana. That's something that is there. You can't be an Arahant as a lay person. Okay, so the day they are attaining Parinibbana came. Okay, so Buddha, they were these two, the old couple, they were walking, accompanying with the Buddha and the Sangha. They are following. So in the front, it was the old couple, and next the Buddha, and next the Sangha. So they went to a certain place and they attained Parinibbana. And with the relics, Buddha made sure that a stupa is built. Then the monks questioned the Buddha, all the people, even devas and humans, know that your father is King Suddhodana, mother is Mahamaya. So who are these two? They asked. So Buddha said, monks, these two are very special. They are unique in the sense, for, I think, as I remember, 500 past lives. They have been my mother and father. And 500 past lives, they have been my stepmother and stepfather. And 500 lives, they had become also like relatives to me, and they have carried me as relatives in their hands for 3,000 lives. Likewise, Buddha gives an explanation of past lives, their connection. So that is why when they saw the Buddha, they thought him as their own son. So Buddha can see all this. They were called Buddha Mata and Buddha Pita for that, the mother and father of Buddha. So he could see all this. Why? Because he can recollect the past lives of being, not of only himself, but for other beings as well. And there was a case where a certain Brahmin, arrogant Brahmin, he wanted to dig himself a grave where someone else has not been buried. So he wanted his own special place. He wanted himself to be buried in that particular place where someone else had not been buried before. So he picked this huge banyan tree. So he put his servants and he was uprooting the huge banyan tree so he could dig up a safe place to be buried when he was dead. So then Buddha came along and Buddha asked him, "What are you doing, Brahmin?" He said, "Like, this is my idea. I want to be buried in a place where no one else have been buried." Buddha asked his name. So he says his name and Buddha said, "You have buried in that exact place 14,000 times with that very name. Same name, same place, 14,000 times." So imagine the samsaric journey a person takes. The Buddha sees all this. And there is some other suttas like emphasize this. There's a Kula Sutta, okay? I read the sutta. At one time, the Buddha was wandering in the land of the Kosalans together with a large sangha of mendicants, monks, okay? When he arrived at Nalanda, there he stayed near Nalanda in Pavarika, Mango's Grove. So Buddha is there with some monks. And now that was a time of famine and scarcity in Nalanda. So there was a famine at that time, with blighted crops turned to straw. At that time, Nigantanatha Buddha was also residing in Nalanda, together with a large assembly of his followers, okay, Jaina ascetics. Then Abhisandaka son, the chief who was a disciple of the Nigantas, went up to Nigantanatha Buddha, bowed and sat down to one side. Nigantanatha Buddha then says to him, "Come, chief, refute the ascetic Gautama's doctrine. Then you will get a good reputation." Abhisandaka's son, the chief, refuted the doctrine of the ascetic Gautama, so mighty and powerful. So he is encouraging him to go against the Buddha so that he can in that way gain fame. Okay. But sir, how am I to do this? Here Brahmin, go to the ascetic Gautama and say to him, "So don't you in many ways praise kindness, protection and compassion for families?" When he is asking this way, if he answers, "Indeed I do, chief," then say to him, "So what exactly are you doing wandering together with this large sangha of monks during a time of famine and scarcity, with blighted crops turned to straw?" The Buddha is practicing to annihilate, collapse and ruin families. He has no compassion. When you put this dilemma to him, the Buddha won't be able to either spit it out or swallow it down. Clear? So he asked him to go, say this, then he will reply in this way. Then ask him, like, if you say you have compassion, why? Why go to families in a time of difficulty? You're ruining the families. So get a point. And he will have no answer. Then he said, "Yes, sir," replied Abhisandaka's son. He got up from his seat, bowed and respectfully circled Nigantanatha Buddha, keeping him on his right. Then he went to the Buddha, bowed, sat down onto one side and said, "So don't you in many ways praise kindness, protection and compassion for families. Buddha said, indeed I do, chief. So what exactly are you doing? Wandering together with this large sangha of monks during a time of famine and scarcity. With blighted crops turned to straw, the Buddha is practicing to annihilate, collapse, and ruin families. Now he accused the Buddha, just as he was taught by Nigantanatha Buddha. Then Buddha says, well, chief, I recollect 90 eons back. Okay? It's 91 years actually, okay? I recollect 91 eons back. But I am not aware of any family that's being ruined merely by offering some cooked alms food. So that instant, Buddha recollected 91 eons upon that question. So think he recollected not of one person, of all beings, to see if there is any one person in 91 years back, in a split second, to have experienced such a thing. What? To see if a person has, because of offering alms food, had suffered. Buddha said, I am not aware of any family that's being ruined merely by offering some cooked alms food. Rather, rich, affluent, and wealthy families with lots of gold and silver, lots of property and assets, and lots of money and gain, all acquired their wealth because of generosity, truth, and restraint. All that he learned in a split second. But all the wealthy people that lived during those 91 years had acquired this wealth, this money and gain. Why? Because they had practiced three things. What? Generosity, they spoke the truth, and they practiced sense restraint. Because of these three things, no one family had suffered because of practicing generosity. See, he realized all this in a split second. That is the power Buddha possessed. He could recollect manifold past lives. And then Buddha goes on to actually what are the things that cause a family to be ruined. Okay, you can read that sutta. So that's what I wanted to emphasize there. And there is also, I think there's another sutta. Yeah, in this case, the Buddha tells this to a person called Vacha. And here Buddha say, for Vacha, wherever I want, I recollect my mankind past lives. That is 1, 2, 3, likewise, 100, 100,000 rebirths. Many years of the world contracting, many years of the world expanding, many years of the world contracting and expanding. I remember there I was named likewise. Buddha tells of his skill, the ability he has to recollect manifold past life. So then Buddha says here, then Vacha asks a question. When he said the wanderer, Vacha said to him, Master Gautama, are there any lay people who, without giving up the fetter of lay life, make an end of suffering when the body breaks up? Okay, he asked a question. Master Gautama, are there any lay people who, without giving up the fetter of lay life, that means without giving up the lay life, that make an end of suffering, that means become an arahant before the body breakups? That can you live a life of an arahant as a lay person? So that is why we saw in that case that Buddha Mata and Buddha Pita, the old couple, they attain parinibbana. You can't do that, doesn't happen. You can't live as a lay person. No Vachas, he said. But are there any lay people who, without giving up the fetter of lay life, go to heaven when the body breaks up? Buddha says there's not just 100 lay people, Vacha, or 2 or 3 or 400, 500, but many more than 2, and many practice the path. They does not give the lay life as lay people, and they are born in heaven. So Buddha says this because he sees what happens to each and every being. No? So and here it says, and asking, Master Gautama, are there any Ajivika ascetics who make an end of suffering when the body breaks up? That means, are there any people of any other religion who go to heaven when the body breaks up? Watch, when I recollect the past 91 years, I can't find any Arjiv means anyone of any other religion who have gone to heaven, except one. Except one. And he also taught the efficacy of deeds and action. So like that, see how fortunate we are to go for refuge the Buddha. For 91 years, no one from any other religion has gone to the heaven, save for this one person, because in his case, he had believed in karma and its results, because that he had gone to heaven. So in that case, Master Gautama, he says, in that case, Master Gautama, the other religions are empty even of the chance to go to heaven. What about achieving liberation? No, they don't actually give the opportunity for the disciples to at least go to heaven. Yes, the other religions are empty even of the chance to go to heaven. So likewise, this emphasized Buddha's skill of reflecting past lives. So next power is the ninth power. Punachaparan Sariputta Tathagatu Dibbena Chakkuna Visuddhena Atikkanta Manusakena Satte Passati Chavamani Upajamani Hine Panite Suanne Dubbanne Sugate Duggate Yata Kamupagate Satte Pajanati. That means with this divine nine, which is purified and surpasses the human, the normal eye, the Tathagata sees beings passing away and reappearing, inferior and superior, fair and ugly, fortunate and unfortunate. That means like beings, he see, how because of their actions, beings they create karma, and according to the karma, their consciousness is affected by their actions. And when the consciousness fares on, and according to when the karma bears fruit, they would fare on to a rebirth. And karma is like the field, and consciousness is the seed, and craving is the water, the moisture, and the consciousness grows. That is the birth in another life. So Buddha sees how, according to their actions, beings fare on from one life to other. That's what is discussed here with this divine nine. Chutupapata Jnana. Buddha sees this. Okay, and he gave a nice simile, for us to understand that it is like there's this mansion, in a crossroads, and in the topmost floor of that mansion, a person is there, standing on the topmost floor. He could see below, because it's at a crossroads, people coming out of houses, and then they are going to another house. They are traveling from one house to other, entering, leaving. Likewise, people fare on from one life to the another. Likewise, Buddha could see all this with the Chutupapata Jnana. And there's that simile also, Now we discussed the simile of the yoke, in the beginning. That was the Dutiya Jiggala Sutta. In the Patama Jiggala Sutta, there are two suttas that is slightly similar. Here Buddha says a yoke is because suppose a man would throw a yoke with a single awl into the great ocean, and there was a blind turtle which would come to the surface once every 100 years. What do you think, because would that blind turtle come into the surface once in every 100 years, insert its necks into that yoke with a single awl? Same simile. If it would ever do so, Venerable Sir, it would be only after a long time. Then Buddha said, monks, sooner I say, would that blind turtle come into the surface once every 100 years, insert its necks into that yoke with a single hole, than the fool who has gone once for the netherworld would regain the human state. That means if that can happen, when the yoke is floating, once in 100 years, when the turtle comes, it might put it head through the yoke's hole. But still, what is even more scarce or improbable is for a person, if he is born in the hell world, say the animal world or the hell world, to come to a human birth. That is even more difficult. would regain a human state. For what reason? And Buddha gives the reason for that. Because here, because there is no conduct guided by the Dhamma, no righteous conduct, no wholesome activity, no meritorious activity. Here in this world, there prevails mutual devouring, the devouring of the weak. For what reason? Because they have not seen the four nobles. The reason for that is we are going in samsaric. Because this Buddha sees from this Chutupapatthana. He see, that they are born there because of not realizing the Four Noble Truths, because of their bad deeds, they fall into the hell worlds, but they are not coming back as frequently. Very rarely do they return to the human world. He sees this because of the Chutupapata Jnana, and he states the simile. That is when you see the gravity of that simile, because Buddha says this based on the 10 powers. Okay? The Chutupata Jnana. And we also have learned the Manusya Chuti, Jevata Chuti Suttas. Do you remember that? We have discussed before. Manusya Chuti means Buddha said when from the people who fare on from the human world, only a wee bit, like the simile is like you take a bit of soil to the fingernail and compare it to that of the earth. People as much as the earth are born in the hell worlds, whereas a wee bit like that's on the tip of the fingernails comes back to the human world. Same in the heavenly worlds. Only a very bit come back to the heavenly world, but the majority is born in the heavenly world. And the comparison is with the earth, the soil of the earth and soil on the tip of the fingernail there. So Buddha see this from the Chutupata Jnana. And Buddha once arrives in this specific Nadika Sutta. It says here, it's in when the Buddha had stayed in Kotigama, and then he travels to Nadika. He said, "Come, Ananda, let's go to Nadika." Yes, Ananda replied, and they together goes to the Nadika village, where he stayed in the big house. Then Venerable Ananda went up to the Buddha, bowed, sat down to one side and said to him, "Sir, the monk named Salha has passed away in Nadika. Where has he born in his next life?" And in this he gives a list of names of people who had passed away. Maybe there was like pandemic or whatever. We don't know. Many people have died, it seems, a famine or whatever reason. So the monk named Sal has passed away in Nadika, where he has born in his next life. The nun named Nanda, the layman named Sudatta, and the lay woman named Sujata have passed away in Nadika. Where have they been reborn in the next life? The layman named Kakkata, Kaliba, Nikata, Katissaba, Tutta, Santutta, Baddha, and Subadha have passed away in Nadika. Where have they been born in the next life? Like there's a list, okay? And then Buddha gives exactly where they have been born. Ananda, the monk, Sala, had realized the undefiled freedom of heart and freedom by wisdom in this very life. Having realized it with his own insight due to the ending of defilements, that means he became Arahant, no? The nun Nanda had ended the 5 law of fetters. She is being reborn spontaneously and will be extinguished. They are not liable to return from that. That means she had become a non-returner, no? Being born in the Brahma world. The layman Sudat had ended 3 fetters and weakened greed, hate, and delusion. He is a once returner. He will come back to this world once only, then make end of suffering. The lay woman Sujata had ended 3 fetters. She is a stream enterer, not liable to be reborn in the underworld, bound for awakening. The layman Kakkata, Kaliba, Nikata, Katissaba, Tutta, Santutta, Baddha, and Subadha had entered the 5 law of fetters. They were reborn spontaneously and will be extinguished. They are not able to return from that world. So they will become Anagami, non-returners. Over 50 laymen in Nadika have passed away, having ended the 5 law of fetters. They are being reborn spontaneously and will be extinguished. They are not liable to return from that world. More than 90 laymen in Nadika have passed away, having ended the 3 fetters and weakened greed, hate, and delusion. They are once returners. Then there are in excess of 500 laymen in Adika have passed away, having ended 3 fetters. They are stream enterers. Likewise, Buddha gives a clear explanation of where they had been born. Why? Because of the Chutupata Jnana, the power the Buddha possesses. Then we come to the 10th and final power of the 10 powers. Punachaparan Sariputta Tathagato Asavanang Kaya Anasavan Cheto Vimukting Panya Vimukting Ditteva Dhamme Sayang Abhinya Sanchikatta Upasampajja Virati. Again, by realizing for himself with direct knowledge, the Tathagata here and now enters upon and abides the deliverance of mind and deliverance by wisdom that are taintless with the destruction of the taints. That means Buddha's mind is free of the asava, the taints. What are the asava? What are asava actually? There are certain underlying tendencies or defilement, deep-seated defilements which are latent in the mind. Okay, so there are 3 types: no, kamasava, bhavasava, avijjasava. Kamasava means there is this we are drawn to, no, we are desirous of sensual pleasures. Bhavas is we are desirous of the existence, and so there are taints with us that we take us to rebirth. No, we are taken to the hell worlds, we are pulled to the hell worlds, we are dragged to the hell worlds, we are dragged to the ghost worlds, we are dragged to the human worlds, we are dragged to the heavenly worlds through this bhava astral existence, taints of existence. Then avidya astral is we are always immersed in ignorance. We are inclined to be ignorant, inclined to not understand Four Noble Truths. Why? Because there is the taints of ignorance, avidya astral. So when Buddha attained some Buddhahood, he destroyed all these taints, and he is therefore free of defilements. That is a Buddha said, Yodeta marang panya udena jitang rakke anivesano siya. That means Buddha said like this: wisdom is like a weapon. It is with the wisdom that you get rid of all the taints. You cut through the taints. So in this way, Buddha was able to achieve asavakkaya jnana, no? Knowledge of destroying all the taints. And in doing so, he uprooted craving once and forever. Buddha said, Yatapi mule anupaddave dalhe chinnopi rukko punareva ruhati evampi tanhanuse anuhate nibbattati dukkhamidam punah punah. Yatapi mule anupaddave dalhe means like there's a tree which have very strong roots. Chinnopi rukko. Okay, that even if the tree is cut, because there still remains the strong roots, again what happens? The tree grows again, no? Punareva ruhati. Again it sprouts and grows. Why? There the roots are there. Evampi tanhanuse anuhati. That's how craving is in our mind. If we do not totally eradicate craving, nibbattati dukkhamidam punah punah. Again and again there arises suffering. Only if we totally uproot craving, destroy, eradicate craving, there is no suffering. Or else, even if there is a wee bit of craving, small bit of residue, then you will definitely suffer. But once you got rid of all the asava, the taints, all the defilements like Buddha did, then you are free of all the suffering. So in this way, the Tathagata has these 10 Tathagatas powers, possessing which Buddha claims the herd leader's place, rose his lion straw in the assemblies and set strolling wheel of the Dhamma or the wheel of Brahma. That means the teachings of the Buddha. Okay, so that's yeah, that's the 10 powers the Buddha possess. So likewise, now that you know the 10 powers, what you should do is first you should like keep them in mind. And when you read suttas, then you can understand, okay, this power, this quality is emphasized in this sutta. Buddha delivered this Dhamma talk based on this quality. Likewise, then you grow in confidence in the Buddha, no? How true. You can see it for yourself, how each and every quality is there in the way Buddha lived his life, in the way he gave Dhamma talks, the way he led his disciples on the spiritual path. That is how you grow in faith toward the Buddha, the Dhamma, the Sangha of monks, and also as a whole the Buddha's dispensation. Okay, if you have questions, you can ask. Very late, I think, no?
Bhante, I have one question.
Sure.
Bhante, what's the difference between Kamasava and Kama Tanha?
Kama Tanha is the desire for sensual pleasures. No? That desire there exists because of the tense. Okay? The tense are there. Say a person practices the jhanas. To practice the jhana, say even the first jhana, you have to distance yourself from sensual pleasures. Okay, that then you are sort of stifling the desire for sensual pleasure. Doesn't mean it is eradicated. So say if a person delves in the first jhana and he passes away without diminishing that state of mind. That means he, even at the moment he passes away, he has the ability to attain the first jhana. It is there. It is something he has practiced well and he's something he's very comfortable with. So therefore he will be born in the Brahma world. But still, when he's passed away, because there is still the desire for sensual pleasures, when he's born in a sensual realm, again the desire arises because the taints are there. Taints of sensual pleasures, the root cause is there. Therefore, they will then again desire the sensual pleasures. That happens. Okay? That is the underlying condition is there. That is the taints. Like the spirit of defilements is the taints. That is why we say when Buddha, the final knowledge Buddha of the Tevidya, the Trividya, the three knowledges is Asavakka jnana. Then it says Buddha realized the taints, Buddha realized the cause of taints, Buddha realized the cessation of the taints, Buddha realized the path leading to the cessation of suffering. With that comes full realization. With that comes Buddhahood, enlightenment, Arahantship, all that. Okay. Any other questions?
Bhante,
Yes.
I just ask a very just wondering, based on the simile, the yoke, I made mention of blind turtle. So I know that the blind turtle, and then it took 100 years for him to pop up, right? And then I think it's making a simile to, let's say, we only have Buddha, a fully enlightened Buddha, that that came to the world only once in years. So my question is, why did it make mention of blind turtle? So is there any significance to that? Just wondering.
I'm not sure. Maybe blind means blind emphasis. Maybe. No, in singular term, when we say khana, we have khana kasbaya. So khana doesn't mean you are totally blind. English is blind. Khana kasbaya means only one eye, no? As I remember.
Yes, Swami. So one eye is blind.
Yeah, when we say khana means one eye. So
One eye is
that
blind.
means then the possibility is even less. When you don't have two eyes, that specific eye has to be
It's the
there.
rarity. Very, very rare. That's what
Very
he's saying.
rare. In the
Because
English
especially if it's
translation, that is
blind.
lot. Yeah, in the English translation that is lost and you have just blind turtle. I also realized when actually reading, so because in the Sinhala it's Kana Kasper, no? And Kana I means is only you can that's no Prasad Matya.
But
That's how
because
it is.
Bante, I'm referring to his
Yeah.
talking about, let's say, Buddha, right? So fully enlightened. But then why is it make a comparison or a metaphor using the blindness of the turtle and blindness of Buddha? I don't know. It just pop up in my mind. So
Yeah.
I don't get it.
So that's how it is. It's even more rare. So when you have one eye, that specific eye has
The
one eye.
rarity, I guess. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. Thank you, Bante.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, Bante. Can I ask one question?
Sure.
Bante, the Nirodha Samapatti, is it attained after the fourth jhana or after the eighth jhana, Bante? Normally,
After the eighth, Arupa
the eighth
Samapatti.
jhana, right, Bante?
So
Yeah.
how you achieve Nirodha Samapatti is in like Chula Vedala Sutta, I think. Did we discuss that sutta? I think we did, no?
We did. They're both Chula Vedala and Mahavedala. We did, but in the past, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, Bante.
Bante, I have another question. Is it okay?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, Bante, now it's mentioned like the 10 powers, right? So Bante, is there something like, because actually there's this other quality which I guess only the Buddha has, which the other teachers don't have, right? The Buddha, I guess, is the only one who teaches without expecting anything back, right?
Yeah,
Whereas, like all the other ones, like they all teach, but they expect something back. They expect followers or something, some sort of expectation is there. So what do you call that in Pali? Not
expectation is we say like labha satkara kirti prasan, like there is this that is something this like we are all expectant of gain, praise, fame, repute. That is there. That is something Buddha said that is ingrained in our bones, sinews. Like it's so very deep seated in our lives that we always look for this. But in the case of the Buddha, he's very unique. Like Buddha saw some dreams. One of the dreams before he attained enlightenment that he saw as a bodhisattva was that he was there was this mountain of feces where the Buddha was walking on this mountain, but his feet was not touching or soiled by the feces. And this huge mountain of feces represented all the praise, gain, repute, the fame Buddha would get in abundance with his Sambuddhahood, with his enlightenment. But still he would not be soiled by them. That even in that dream, that it means that Buddha is always he's not normally when we get gains, repute, fame and all this, we are overwhelmed by that. We get elated by the gains, and when we lose, the opposite happens. We lose fame, like with the opposite of fame is disrepute. Likewise, when that happens, the negative aspects of these things happen, then we get upset. Then there's aversion. Why is there aversion? Because there is the desire for the positive aspect of these things. We say the 10 worldly conditions, like 8 worldly conditions, they rise and fall. No, that means the negative aspects and the positive aspects always forthcoming. We have to face them. That is the nature of the world. But in the case of the Buddha, he is beyond all this. He is not elated by the gains. Therefore, he is not. He has no aversion when he loses. There's no that expectation, because Buddha in his case is free of the defilements. No, these are all defiled states of the mind. No? That is why it is true, very unique when it comes to the Buddha. Now, even in the as a bodhisattva, he had that dream. So that is his merits. Like that is why he is a very super human being, very unique, because he has perfected certain qualities throughout the samsara. That is something you don't see in any other teacher, because Buddha has a lead up, clear lead up to his achievement. The Buddha is. That is what you find in the Jatakas. Over time, he has perfected his life that he's when he is a bodhisattva, when he's ready in this life to attain Buddha, he's pure in all aspects. He's ready. He's molded for that, to achieve that specific goal. That is why Buddha is so very unique, that he is beyond comparison. He can. That is why we say Buddha can only be compared to another Buddha, to not to any other person. Okay.
Swami sir.
Yeah.
Swami sir. Swami sir, did you after Chatupada Jnana, did you was that the last one? Ashwakya?
Asavakkaya jnana. Yeah.
Okay,
Knowledge of the destruction of the taints. Yeah.
okay, Swami sir. Swami sir, the knowledge is also this. Jnanas are also knowledges, right?
Yeah.
Powers also.
In the English language, like for lack of a better word, you use knowledge. Jnana means it's beyond knowledge. Actually, you don't get many words in the English language. Jnana means like it's a certain understanding, a realization, but then you also use realization to say avbodha or to say understanding. So we don't have the necessary words. That is why it is rather distant when it comes to English language. So we just say knowledge, for the lack of a better word. But that means an understanding born of wisdom, a realization.
Realization.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
also called powers, right? Swami sir, you said
Sorry?
10 powers today, right? We said
Yeah.
10
Here
powers.
is 10 power. Dasabala, like that's
Ashabala. Okay, Swami.
Dasabala, no? Dasabala jnana. There are powers
Ashabala
in
Jnana.
knowledge.
Okay,
Yeah.
sir.
One may say 10 powers. One may say 10 powerful knowledges. Like just the content.
Ashabala Jnana. Actually, Swami
Yeah.
Jnana. Okay,
Yeah,
sir.
then jnana. Yeah. Understandings, knowledges, realizations. Yeah. That's the idea.